figure. Most of the folks in Yogo City, Montana, knew she was a young woman, but they understood her need to be protected. From a distance, the filthy coat disguised her age and gave a rather nondescript impression. This generally kept most of the men from bothering her. Most, but not all. A great many men didn't care what a woman looked like so long as she was a woman. Mining towns were lonely places, and women were scarce. Emily glanced down at her appearance. Her coat was only one of many ill-fitting pieces of clothing. Her skirt, under which she wore canvas duck pants rather than petticoats, was ragged and patched many times over. It had belonged to her mother long ago, but now it was one of only two Emily owned. Instead of a blouse, she wore an old flannel shirt of her father's, which hung long, nearly to mid-thigh. Wearing it in this fashion gave her a shapeless, odd look that suited her purpose. The only feminine articles she wore were a fine lawn chemise and a loosely tied corset. Of course, neither of those were visible. She hadn't wanted the addition of the corset, but after a time, she found that the bracing actually kept her back from aching so much at the end of the day. She glanced up at the clear sky, wishing there might be a sign of clouds to offer shade. There wasn't a single one set against the seemingly endless blue. The rolling hills and distant mountains stood out in stark contrast, but even those would offer little shelter from the heat. Turning her attention back to the dirt trail, Emily tried to bolster her spirits. She thought of a poem by Theodore Tilton that was in one of her poetry books. Once in Persia reigned a king, who upon his signet ring graved a maxim true and wise, which, if held before his eyes, gave him counsel at a glance, fit for every change or chance. Solemn words, and these are they: even this shall pass away. But would it? Would this gypsy life, this endless road, would it truly ever pass away? The walk to town, if Yogo City could be called a town, would take no time at all. Emily could walk a fast pace, and her endurance did her proud. She could even walk the 18 miles to Utica, the only real town near to this collection of miners and reprobates, in less than half a day. Once she'd had to do just that when her father had been away and her mother's pain medication had run out. It wasn't a trip she wanted to make again, however. There was no telling when a bear or some two-legged creature might try to complicate the journey. Sweat trickled down her face. They lived in one part of Montana or another for the last few years, and generally the summers had been mild. This year was a blazer, as her father put it, and there was no end in sight. Emily pulled out a dark blue handkerchief and wiped her face and neck. It would be winter soon enough, and then everyone would complain about the cold. She tucked the handkerchief away and gave a wave to one of the locals who sat whittling under the shade of a pine tree. The man claimed to be Scottish and called himself Rob Roy after some famous ancestor. Emily knew there was a book by Sir Walter Scott that told of that man, but as of yet she'd never come by a copy. "Hot enough for you?" the man asked without pausing in his work. "Reckon so." She kept her voice low, almost gravelly. The man said nothing more but gave a nod. The heat left neither of them wanting to talk. The effort was just too great. The friends they'd made here in Yogo City were good ones, and Emily knew they looked out for her and her mother. These few men were good to bring them extra game, or offer up warnings about bear in the area. And Emily felt confident that when her father had to leave for several days, those same men were watching over them. No one had said a word about it, but the effort was there all the same. Of course, the